pulling out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get about your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out.
Welcome. It's episode 51 of Agencyphonics. I'm here today with Camilla Honey from JFDI, although I normally dyslexically say JDFI for some reason, but I got it right for a change. Welcome, Camilla.
Thank you.
So before we start, as always, just a couple of quick thank yous. Thank you to Caitlin today producing the show. Massive thank you to Abby behind the scenes, as always, making sure all the guests know where to go and make sure everything's organised. And a massive thanks to our sponsors, Forecast. Forecast is the project management software for agencies to use to manage your projects more effectively. Check them out. They're in the show notes. We can't do all of this stuff that we do without this help and support. They also help us fund our community. And so, we're eternally grateful for all their support. And today, I'm really, really excited because the subjects that are closest to my heart in agency life, is lead generation, new business. And I am delighted to have the legendary Camilla Honey of JFDI. So I'm going to let Camilla really do her own introduction, I think, because you'll probably do it more articulately than me. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in agency new business in particular, and then maybe a little bit into, JFDI, what really the journey that you've had, but also because you've been around for quite a long time now. But more importantly, I'd like to know a bit more about the typical ways you help agencies today.
Sure. So in terms of the background, I'll try and be succinct because, I have been around a few years, Spencer. I have. That is true. But I funnily enough, I think I wanted to have my own business before I actually specialised in new business, which really surprised me. I only clocked on that the other day because I remember always being in bookshops and having your own business. When I was about 18, I thought I'd set up a children's entertainment company. I mean, what a nightmare. So I was pretty keen on having my own business. I was sort of one of those, I think new business people can be a bit like that. And I was really inspired. I first worked in a financial PR company. It was all a bit serious. But my boss, Chris Matthews, who's now a very, very good friend of mine, he really inspired me because it was all about the tenacity of how we go about winning new business. And it was all about the personal details. And I remember that we had a Polish client who we were pitching for, and he sent me all around town to find a Polish newspaper, which actually was really, really hard. And obviously you've got to use your intel. It was a bit like something out of The Apprentice. I was, thinking, where's the Polish community? Where do we go? And eventually I found this newspaper, and they probably invested an entire day. But of course, when the client came in, how welcome did he feel? You can imagine if that was us in Poland and there's an English newspaper. And I just loved that.
Love it.
Loved the detail. He was such a determined person. And I just really, really sort of fell in love with new business. And then I was given my first break, really, when I joined J. Thompson with Martin Jones, who's now at the AAR. And I absolutely loved my time there. I did kill myself because we did used to often be briefed into making videos at sort of midnight. And often I'd go to bed at 3 and be in at 6 serving bacon sandwiches. But that was then. This is now. I don't think that would be allowed anymore. But I absolutely loved it. And I sort of learned the craft of new business there. There was certainly a way, but there wasn't even the internet. So it has changed so dramatically. But I left J. Thompson, and this would have been 24 years ago. We hear this now. I became a new biz consultant, and there was not such a thing as new biz consultants, because people were going, well, how can you work for them and them? And I said, well, I work for 3 different Marcoms companies who don't conflict. And it was a sort of new thing being a consultant. And I found it fascinating because I could go and learn about the different type of marketing communications. So I did that for about 8 years. had my son, and I think sometimes when you have your children, a bit like the pandemic, you sort of rethink what you're going to do. And originally went to set up a company just purely on providing post-pitch feedback, because I was so passionate about all this work had been done to get us to the point of pitch, and then if it's mucked up, what a waste, what a squandered opportunity. So I found that lots of people wanted to meet to talk about it, but very few agencies bought that product. And in fact, of all the products we have, that is our least bought. And I think that's another whole subject matter in itself. But I then decided that all the different consultancy I was doing across agencies, it was almost like troubleshooting. And in fact, in the same way that you do, Spencer, it was troubleshooting across all the different areas of new business. But I didn't cover the areas you cover, which is people, ops, and margins. But there are probably 10 typical problems agencies face, from, well, am I fit for purpose in the first place? A bit of a big one. But, have I got the right proposition? Have I got a pipeline? Is my conversion strong? Do my team grow existing client business? So I decided to set up JFDI. And I wondered whether I could get away with calling a business Just Do It with the F word in there. And I remember my mum said, what will I tell my friends? And I said, Mum, sorry, it's not about what your friends think. But I always sort of got away with it by saying F can be focus or for goodness sake. But the reason I called it JFDI, and I think that's what's going to be very interesting when we talk about activity in new business, is that you can stop and you can think about each part of the component parts of new business. But if you don't stop at 80% and get on with it, you've got a real problem. And I think anyone who overthinks or overanalyzes really gets held back. And so, think about how you're going to do your marketing, but then just do it. So I kept on writing, just do it, just do it, just do it. So I set up JFDI 18 years ago, the same year my daughter, who also is 18. So it's quite a big moment. And really to help agencies in 3 ways. So filling pipelines, converting business, and growing existing client business. But like a spoke of a wheel, there's so many different things that come out of how do you fill a pipeline, how do you convert, and how do you grow. But they're the 3 areas. We're privileged to have worked with about 750 agencies now. And when I set up, I thought it would be less sophisticated agencies wanting to buy the big agency experience, but it was the absolute opposite. It was like the best people, the best companies come because it's marginal gains. And if they listen to one talk like this and they come away with something that's really does make a difference to their new business process, then it's worth it. So then we were really lucky because we had the IPA behind us and we had really big agencies like Adam and Eve. James Murphy, before he was Adam and Eve, came on one of our workshops as to how we were going to progress, and Essence as well. We did my business partner did the proposition for Essence in a smoky pub. They're now, I don't know, 250 million pounds or something. So we've been really, really, really lucky, and we do training and consultancy. Predominantly is where we started, so the sort of strategic side, and then I had people going, this is great, but can you come and do some of this good stuff? So we've got a team of new biz directors who can come in and actually activate some of the plans.
Amazing.
So that is where we are to this day.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, because I'm a big fan of agencies being taught how to fish, taught how to sell, because I feel like sometimes a lot of people in agencies, especially, I come across them that aren't, let's say, the more entrepreneurial, outgoing ones. They will, they'll always try and delegate away sales and new business. Just like, I don't want to do it. I'm going to find somebody else, another company can do it for me. And I think, in a way, it's understandable, because a lot of agencies are run by creatives or strategists or engineers or even account managers, and they may not necessarily be outwardly focused maybe. And so I get it, but I think there's such an important role to play trying to educate everyone about sales, and then creating, you mentioned it a minute ago, sales culture as well. So we'll dig into a few of those areas. I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I love the story about tenacity and finding the Polish newspaper, because it's those tiny noticeable things, isn't it? When you do new business or you're doing a pitch, or it's finding those little bits of magic, you know? And I love that. I remember, I'm sure we've got loads of stories between us about that, but, you know, going the extra mile. And, you know, I remember I did a pitch for Virgin Trains, and we filmed everyone jumping off the trains and interviewed them about the experience and used that in the pitch, and, you know, little vox pops and little video. It's all of those things that just, you know, so many times I go into a board meeting and I'll say, can you show me the presentation? And there's nothing tailored to it. It's just a standard presentation about the agency and what they're going to do, and nothing about understanding the business. So I love that. JWT. I only have one experience with JWT, which was I had to go there for a meeting once when I turned up in jeans, a t-shirt, and a very scruffy jacket. That was kind of the agency code, let's say around 2010, dress code. And I remember sitting in the reception, it's Knightsbridge. I don't know if they were in Knightsbridge when you worked there, right? And I can only describe it as a very different culture to my agency, which was full of young scruff bags. And everyone was like wearing, you know, haute couture outfits. It was like, I reckon that there was more money. I mean, they must have been wearing like $2,000 suits. And that was just the women. You know?
Very, very
that true
background. And actually it was frightening. Something like 98% or something of everyone had gone to university. So I made up one of the 1% who didn't, because I had to get in and work. But about 90% went to Oxford or Cambridge.
I did that.
And there is a joke about going to JWT or something about, oh, you know, I didn't go to JWT, my parents couldn't afford to send me there, which is my husband's joke. It was brilliant. You know, those 4 years were really happy times, because Martin, who, if anyone who knows him, who's the AAR, he, you know, everyone flocked to Martin. So we made the new biz department, like we had a bowl of sweets and sofas, and it was a place you sort of went. But what was clever about it was, of course, Martin learned all the gossip. He could trade it with the journalists. He heard all the little snippets. And in new business, he had to encourage everyone to come with you. Because then, you know, we were doing our slides. We had to literally sellotape them onto cardboard backgrounds, and so it was like sort of going shopping at J. Walsh Thompson, because I had to wait at 9:30. The facilities department opened, the typing pool opened, the proofreader opened. So I'd be queuing up with my basket, and the thing was just trying to encourage, get everyone on your side to get them to help you create these pictures. But it was a really happy time. We worked hard, we played really hard as well, and we all used to meet for breakfast in the morning and re-campaign.
You know what, when you pitch, like, I mean, my first experience of matching the people that you're selling to, and understand that truly. I mean, when I think JWT was the first time I realized that probably the people in the agency were dressing like the target client, who were probably C-suite, senior execs, a period of time where maybe everyone was dressing smarter generally. And there must have been an element of matching, because I remember when I sold my business to Gyro and I became part of their business, that was where the Virgin Trains pitch was. And I got told by the biz dev guy, you like his committee, he said, and bearing in mind, I was 38, so, you know, I wasn't that old really. And he said, your opposite number, head of digital, she's 24. So, and I'm wearing like jeans, a t-shirt and a jacket, again, a standard. And he said, I need you to dress down. And I went, what do you mean? Because I need Converse, I need a t-shirt, loser jacket. Yeah. And so, you know, the matching concept came in, of understanding, making your prospective customers feel like you're more on their way. You look and feel like you're
colours.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
You can dress the logos. Well, one thing I just had a thought about, we'll probably weave it in later. I was just thinking about this morning, actually, is that what we used to do, you know, we used to move up in a linear fashion. So I broke into the industry, decided I loved new business. I was a new business assistant, a new business manager, new business director, new business consultant. Now I've got my own company. But the generation now is, I was asking my son what's the word for it, and we couldn't work it out. I thought it was lattice structure, but it's basically a a sort of horizontal, you can basically change job. And that's what's happening in the pandemic. Lots of people are deciding to move out and be yoga teachers or something else, which is why there's, as you highlighted to me, Spencer, number one at the moment is resourcing issues. So we'll come on to talk about that, because there's a real resourcing issue when it comes to really good new biz people. And that is part, there should be opportunities. If people are moving across rather than going up, there should be other people, I'm thinking find others who are just very, very good at the skill set you need to be really good in new business. But I'm sure we'll cover that in a bit.
I think most people listening, whether it be live or whether it be, for the recording, will probably really, I think one of the most common questions I get is, how do I recruit a new business person? What are the types of new business people? And I know you'll know a lot about that. Maybe as a high level, you give us a bit of an overview on the different types of people that that are out there, and we'll cover that in a bit. But we'll before we get there, I want to pick up on one other thing you just said, because you said 3 great things in your intro. Post-pitch feedback. I used to have a questionnaire actually with clients that it was really long. It was a bit too long and a bit too detailed. But it's so important. I remember, I went through a year where I didn't lose a pitch, and I remember thinking I've got the Midas touch, everything's working well, and then I lost 7 pitches in a row, and it took me till 7 to realize I'd lost 7. And I didn't know why. And if I'd done post-pitch feedback from the first one, it would have become very obvious very quickly why and who the problem was. Because it only sometimes takes one person in your team to change, or something, how you shift the way you communicate, or you come across. So the post-pitch feedback is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I became obsessed with it when our dream client, as you say, for J. Walter Thompson, it would be a Rolls-Royce type of client, we wanted British Airways. We were just obsessed with British Airways. It's a different world though. And finally, the chance to pitch for British Airways came along. But what had happened was the Saatchi brothers had separated. So that was then M&C Saatchi was called New Saatchi, and Saatchi was called Old Saatchi. Yeah. So we had the New Saatchi, we had the Old Saatchi, we had us and BBH on the list. And we were like, right. And so we set up this task force. Every morning we met at 8:30. We were like singing that British Airways music. And for 3 months, honestly, I just totally gave up my life. And we were all wearing British Airways T-shirts, and we totally ruled our lives. And I remember my flatmates couldn't work out why the night before the pitch I didn't come in till 3 a.m. They were like, but you've known about this for 3 months. This is the way it works. So we did the pitch, and we didn't win it. And we were never going to win it, because it was always going to go to the new Saatchis. But what happened, which I was really quite horrified by, was that I'd given up 3 months of my life, and the management team had done the pitch. And they were a wonderful agency, but it triggered through to me, it trickled through that we hadn't won and we came a close second. And firstly, I thought, it would have been really nice if someone had come to us and told us that rather than me hearing it. Secondly, I thought, but did we come a close second? And thirdly, Martin and I then had to go and sit in front of the finance director about how much money had been spent on the pitch. And I'll never forget this. So bearing in mind, this was 25 years ago, we spent £167,000
What?
on the pitch. And it was really funny because Martin, if anyone knows, is really laid back. And she was called Alison someone, and she looked at the pictures. I remember she went, yikes, cried. And we were like, we were just sort of going, well, I'm sorry, but we needed to and whatever. And I just thought, this is nuts. We spent 167 grand. We didn't really have a chance anyway, but we felt we should go for it. And we need to learn from this. And I thought for £500, we could learn. And so the next agency I went to was called Hal Henry, and a fantastic company where it was the opposite of J. Walter Thompson, because they were so ahead of their time, and we were given a laptop and a phone, and we could hot desk and sit anywhere we liked. And I just thought, this was brilliant. But just like you, they'd gone through this stage. They were a winning agency. In fact, at one point they had to close for new business, and they suddenly lost 7 out of 10 in a row. And I joined when they were at this place. So I talked to the strategy director and said, I think we need to put in place some consistent feedback, because if you sit down and get one piece of feedback, they might go creative wasn't very good, and then the next time it's strategy, and the next one you talk too much, whatever. It's too wishy-washy. It has to be done in a consistent manner and by an independent person. And it really, what you need to do is, when you agree to pitch, is you get the client, you say, look, I will pitch, and you're giving your time for free. We do always ask for feedback whether we win or lose. And of course they'll say yes, and you diarize it just as much. You diarize, you know.
Oh, that's a really great idea.
Yeah, you get it in the diary, so then it's not difficult. Yeah. And the most important thing of all is getting an independent person, because if you know, you or I pitch, Spencer, and we're asking, you know, if I would
no, Camilla, do you know what? You're so right, because the example I wanted to share with you then was, I had a pitch for, do you remember there was a Setanta Sport was they were like a contender to BT, and they won a few years ago, they won the football rights like BT have now. And we pitched for their business, and I got told that we lost it. And when I asked for the feedback, I said, why? They said it was because because we hadn't included some UX work around eye tracking, which was a really vague and random thing, yeah, which we could have done if we'd been asked, but it seemed like it's just a very weird thing to say. And then when I finally came out of agency life, I was at Kew Gardens, weirdly enough, with my daughter at the time. She was a lot younger, and I bumped into the guy from Setanta Sport, and I said, oh, hi, how are you? He said, oh, do you know what? He goes, I've always wanted to tell you this, Spencer. He said, but you didn't lose it because of the red eye stuff. It was just because you weren't based in London. And I remember thinking, do you know, I wonder if someone independent he would have said that to, but he didn't want to say it to me, you know? And so you're right. I think it has to be someone independent. Otherwise, they tell you they tell you something to be nice to you, almost.
Yeah. And I think people are nervous to do it because they're worried about hearing something personally. And also, you're so exhausted from it on the Friday, you go to the pub and you want to start again. But when I set up JFDI, I thought I've got to practice as I preach. And so we were running these, you know, courses. So I got someone to do this independently. And of course, when I had to go to his office, like the headmaster's office, and hear how I'd done and how I'd been scored, I thought, oh, God. But what was clever was, because he did it, and he did 6 at a time, it was never a personal one person saying it. It was things like I was running the courses in a hotel, and the music was a bit annoying in the background. You know, it's stuff. But if you hear it 3 times, you know you need to fix it. And when we did this with Hal Henry, we learnt 3 fascinating things. And one of them was that the founder was very, very charismatic, Rupert Howe, and they just said to him, right, you've got to take Rupert out of this. He talks too much. He, you know, overtakes everyone, you know. And of course, one of the things we learned was everyone loved him. They wanted him there. So that was very easy. We just wheeled him back in, you know. So we totally turned the pitch winning around by that sort of exercise, but we used an independent person. So, yeah, I'm really, really passionate about it. But
I love that. I love that story, because there is definitely a time when agencies grow where the founders become too dominant, and it becomes like I was guilty of that. It was a bit like the Spencer Gallagher show in a pitch. And then eventually you realize that they realize not working with you, they're working with the team. And then you've got to shut up, because otherwise, if people don't say anything, they just think that they don't care, or they've got nothing to say. So, and then it's like one of those mistakes. But then if you don't come out the pitch altogether, they don't think you're serious about the business or you really care. So I remember that even when we were at Gyro, Gary Bryan would walk into most pitches when he was a CEO, 100 million turnover business. You know, he would still turn up and say, "Hi, look, I'm here because, you know, you're an important prospect for us. But obviously I don't do all the work, you know, but just here to let you know." And it was a really nice way for them to take the client seriously, but then let the team do the pitch, you know.
Exactly.
Love that. So, I want to talk. We did a Q&A in our community recently, and we didn't get to this question. And it's a really important one for me. And I think people listening, I think it's something that everyone should really, I don't think that agencies invest enough in training. Now, I know you're going to say yes, because that's what you do. But as someone who started my life in sales, like you, I always wanted to have a business, but ended up in sales. And that was almost my bridging gap towards it after my career in retail. But what I learned was that when I started my career outside of retail, well, in fact, even when I was in retail, I used to get sales training. And every time I would do sales training, I would walk away a little bit more motivated. I would learn new things. I would be reminded of things that I'd learned before, I'd forgotten. But I swear that, that investment in training was just, and in fact, I recently went to a talk where a sales trainer gave a presentation, and it was almost a bit like coaching at the same time. And I remember walking away thinking, oh, I need more of this, Yeah. Tell me about do you find agencies invest enough in training? I don't seem to think they do. I think they need to do more.
Well, for starters, we call it new business or business development, business growth, never sales.
Yeah.
Agencies shy away from the S word. I believe the reason they do is because, a lot of people see sales as a dirty word. And why? It's because they think of that seedy car salesman or that person arriving at the door, putting their foot in the door, selling you dusters or whatever. And they think, oh, I don't really want to be like that. And that's because they're thinking about transactional sales. And transactional sales are if you and I are going to have a transaction and I'm trying to sell you this pen in the next hour, I'm never going to see you again. My commission depends on it. I'm probably going to act very, very differently with you as to why you should buy this pen. In our industry, it's more complicated. It's a consultative sell, and that means mapping your way through the stakeholders. And the consultative sell is obviously all about value add, etc. And the leading on to this absolutely brilliant book called The Challenger Sale. One of my favorite books by someone called Matt.
Me too, by the way.
Sorry?
Me too.
Yeah, it's
I reread it only a few months ago, Camilla. I reread it 4 or 5 months ago. And in fact, just as a reminder, it takes a little bit to get through. They almost like American books. They talk so much about the data in the first 100 pages. I was like, It took a while to get through to the actual.
It's some of those books which you can whiz through really quickly are really comforting, and then you go, I'm doing most of this, but I've learned this, and that was quite academic. But the academia behind it, they research 6,000 salespeople in 90 companies across a range of industries, and what they did was to identify the top characteristics and traits that really great sales performers use. And there's a system that can be applied and replicated, and that's what I like about the consultative sales. So in the world of B2B and management consultants, they have systematic processes and means to get to the sale, whereas I don't think we have that in agency land at all. It can be a bit spray and so I heard this the first time the other day, spray and pray. I feel an upside down funnel coming on shortly. But what the research showed is that there are 5 different types of B2B sales reps. And I might ask the audience if they fancy sort of joining in a bit to put something in the chat. So these are the 5 different types, and I'd be interested to know who we have on here and what type you feel you are. So there's the relationship builder, and that's a classic kind of consultative rep. They build advocates internally and they create relationships with prospects. I definitely was brought up in the world of relationship selling. The reactive problem solver are highly detailed orientated. They reliably respond to stakeholders and they ensure all problems are solved. Then we have the hard worker, doesn't give up easily, self-motivated and interested in feedback and personal development. And the lone wolf follows own instincts, self-assured, but can be difficult to manage. And the challenger has a different view of the world, loves to debate and push customers, and has a strong understanding of customers' business. So I don't know of anyone who's here which of those categories you feel you would fall into, But I know that when I do this with teams, I always get the dominant ones are it's the relationship and the hard worker. You get the odd lone wolf. We all have a laugh about that. And I definitely was the hard worker and the relationship builder. So the hard worker works for transactional sales because what you're doing is selling, moving on, order taking, selling, moving on, order taking. The relationship, we were brought up in relationship selling. So my husband used to sell space for Murdoch. He did brilliantly with going out for boozy lunches, getting on with people. But fast forward to today, it just doesn't work. We have to build rapport. So when we have Zoom calls or whatever, probably easier than ever to do that rapport building for 5-7 minutes. But just getting on with someone doesn't work anymore because it's a buyer's market and buyers are discerning. And so the challenge, it doesn't mean that you challenge in an aggressive way. But what you are doing, and the challenger sale, I gave away the clue at the beginning because I talked about the challenger sale first, but the challenger either brings a new piece of thinking to the prospect and or we bring value add. And that is coming in number one top salesperson of the moment. And it makes total sense for the world we're in right now as well.
Camilla, I think what's interesting about that is that agency founders are often evangelists, experts in a particular field when they set their agency up. Like for me, I knew a lot about digital before a lot of other people knew about it. I'm not saying I was the only one, but I knew a lot about how to use digital to transform client experience, client brands experiences. The more I spoke about that, the more that I challenged the approach that people I was meeting when I went out networking about I was challenging their business approach because I could show empathy and understand what it was like for them in their role, what their company's challenges were. Actually, I was able to create quite a lot of leads myself by being a really good challenger. Now, obviously, in a previous life, I would do that and then I would own the sales process as well. But actually, the reality is there are different types of sales people sometimes that are, that you say the best ones have to be challengers. I agree. And I mean, by the way, how I became a challenger, I think in previous lives and I think Antonio's kind of said that in the comments there on YouTube. He's on YouTube commenting, was that actually I had to shadow my peers for long periods, or my bosses even for long periods of time, to understand, how they challenge, understand the business well enough to be able to do that myself, And I find that a lot of salespeople that come into businesses, they are sales professionals. Okay, they understand sales process. When you talked about we talked about attracting maybe people into agency world. I had this recently where I had a great sales professional, as I call them, come into the business. He knows everything about the detail around the process of new business, but understanding the actual agency's business, the services we provide, understanding how that could impact the client's business. That's quite a lot of insight that someone has to acquire, and knowledge, isn't it? It takes what I'm saying.
I love sharing that consultative sale with client-facing teams because obviously we need everyone in the business. New business is everyone's business, so we need that sort of culture within. But client-facing teams love it because you go, this is not transactional, it's not aggressive, it's not selling something to someone they don't want. And because you understand the client's world, you're going to do so much better. So actually, because a lot of client-facing team members think they're just given projects and they put their head down and they deliver, and it's someone else's job to do new business. But you say, look, if you want to grow and if you want to work on interesting projects and you want to rise to the top of a company, those who bring in business get noticed. But if you do it in this manner, it's about curiosity, asking the right questions, being so interested in the client's problem, being able to give a solution, and understanding their world. You're going to do better than that transactional salesperson who is just trying to sort of hit the numbers. So,
and it's okay, I guess, sometimes for those transactional people, because as long as there's a lead source coming in, someone's providing them with a lead, and they're managing it through by pulling in the right people, almost like a facilitator type approach, you know, where maybe they're acting as, I mean, I think I shared this story with you once, and it was when I finally became part of Gyro, I saw in my agency, it was pretty much myself and my marketing person who created the leads, Camilla, and then I would hand it over to Vim, who was my business development manager, and he basically would take it through from qualification to close, yeah, and I would still be involved in that process, you know, strategically. But when Gyro bought me, the difference there was, can I name him? No, I won't name him. Don't worry. But he
Was he the new biz director?
We did his first name was Paul. No, we did a big sales pitch, and it was, you know, it was £1 million pitch. I'm in France. I'm up against 2 Parisian agencies, which is always tough when you're in English, when you're based in Farnborough, Hampshire, as a digital office. And so we went in, and I thought he was in the pitch with us. Like, he'd been working through the night 2 nights before with us to get it all done. And he literally at the door said, right, there you go, guys. And he just sort of walked off and left us in the room. And what his job was he would like walk the client to the door of the pitch, and he would say, right, listen, well, good luck. I hope everything goes well. And I'll be here at the end. And he would like meet the clients coming out of the pitch room and say, how did it go? What were they like? And he almost acted slightly more as like his own intermediary.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. And he sort of handheld through the process, and then you can do the post-pitch feedback and everything.
Quite clever, because in a way he became on the client side, not on the agency side almost. Yeah, he was going, so did you see everything you wanted? What else do you need? Okay, well, I've got all the prep. While you were in the back there, I emailed you all of the documents. Sorry? How
do you think it went? You know,
yeah, how do you think it went? Exactly. Like, you know, and I thought it was clever, but anyway, so I think there obviously are different styles, but I mean, do you I mean, I know one of the things we were going to talk about today was, you know, the shift to a more because of what you said, the challenge, you've got to do more of a consultative sale now, right?
Yeah. And may I share with you just another technique? Do you know, if anyone who knows the spin technique?
No,
yeah, I could do a nice synopsis for you. So I've got my lovely old-fashioned flip chart here, which people quite like, because they said when they hear the sound of the pen, they feel like they're actually in the training room again. So what happens here is you've got a person up here. When you go into a new business meeting or an existing client meeting, S stands for situation. So we all go and ask lots and lots of questions, because you have to understand where we're at. Apparently 13 is the perfect number, but I was working with a research company recently, and they said 5 is maximum. So you ask lots and lots of questions, and what happens is, by being experienced and, you know, being around a long time, you and I would very quickly get to what the problem is. So P is for problem. And so if I was talking to an agency head about new business, I would quickly unearth, is their problem filling pipelines, converting business, or growing existing client business? So say they told me that their real issue is they have a 20% conversion rate. I used to go way too fast. So we have products, and if their conversion rate was 20%, I would think, I know I can solve that, because we do pitch to win course, a pitch leadership skills, a pitch presentation skills. And my error was I went way too fast from here to here. And the problem is, these people up here, they buy emotionally, not rationally. So whilst it's rational, he or she hasn't actually decided emotionally they want to do it. So the I in spin stands for implication. And what you're supposed to do is ask these questions, impact and effect. So Spencer, I'd gone to see you and you said, I've got this real issue, my conversion rate is 20%. Then I would say to you, so what impact would it have on the business if it went from 20% to industry average, which is 45%? And you'd say, well, it'd be significant. And, you know, what effect would it have? Well, it means I'd make an extra 300,000 and I can hire a new biz manager and I can get that new database. And what impact would that have on the team? Well, everyone would feel great. And you go on to the point where I go, what effect would that have on you personally? Well, I'd be promoted to chief CEO. And what effect would that have well, I'd take my family to the Caribbean at Christmas. So now, emotionally, you are like, I am so going to do that. I'm so going to do it because, why wouldn't I? And then the N is the need to pay off. And then I'm just sitting here being that fantastic person who can solve this issue for you. So you can do weeks and days on spin, but that was the nugget I got out of it. And I just thought, that is really interesting. But when I went and put it into practice in an agency, I did it on one agency, and I do kind of sales quite naturally. I started going impact effect, and I'd been learning all these techniques, and it was just too much to do. I was looking at the body language and, NLP, their eye movement going up here, and I thought, I'm not being very natural. So I was talking to my business partner, and he said, yeah, don't use the words impact and effect, use your own words. But the whole point is that is too quick. Yeah. You need to get to the point where, and it's not Machiavelli. You could think this is Machiavellian shining the torch on your problem, but I know that I could solve that, and that would make a massive difference to that person. So
that's like if you get a briefing, you apply the challenge yourself. It's like the people that go back and challenge the brief, and by challenging the brief, you're asking more questions. And ultimately, by that, you're demonstrating a greater understanding, but you're also maybe finding things that people have missed. And then, as you say, you can probably then explain more of the benefits of some of those things as well.
Yeah. And there's another great consultancy selling tool that we've sort of taken from B2B and put into agency land called Placemats. It's a bit complicated to explain now, but if anyone wants to know more, they can always ask me. But the idea is extracting the challenges the clients believe they have before you meet, and then putting on a sheet of A4. Placemats can be done in different ways, and then adding some light bulb moments you have yourself about the challenges you think, and then methodically going through and asking, is there anything on this sheet that is superfluous? Is there anything you want to add? Where do you want to start? And so I now say to agencies as well, when you put your products on the website or whatever, what you're better doing is having 2 columns, and on the right having all the challenges you have solved, not just case studies, all the challenges that you have solved, and then you can match it up, because agencies tend to look at going, let's go off the car sector, whereas the personalities of cars are very, very different. Yeah. So that is a really good exercise to do as well. But there's lots of these lovely tools, and if you just got 5% better at all of them, it really, really adds up.
And I think, agencies are very guilty of giving away the thinking, the whole sort of let me think for you, let me do for you. And most agencies start off with a lot of the doing, a lot of the executional, and they give away the thinking for free. And as you get bigger, you realize that the thinking is the more valuable side of your business, your expertise, your knowledge, and that value that brings. So I think, I typically see, and this is a very general stereotype, but when agencies get to about 25 staff, they then start to realize that actually consultancy needs to become a service line, and they need to start offering it out to clients who actually often really want some of that thinking, and they want to invest in it to get better results, or to make better decisions.
Yeah.
So you guys do training. Do you guys do specific training on consultancy selling? Because it is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. We do consultancy selling. And again, for client facing, it's actually my most fun one. I love it because I do quite a lot of, I do one like people are often driven by fear of loss, or they're seeking gains, or they want a comfortable life. And because a lot of it is about people enjoy that one because it's a lot about the psychology as well. Yeah. So there are lots of fun exercises. But no, I really like it. And I remind myself all the time, in that hour you have, you need to have done your research before, you need to have sent information about yourself before, you're trying to read the body language, you're trying to ask the right questions. I mean, there's a lot to think about. And then, of course, the follow-up and finishing with something that is not just wishy-washy, that really advances keeping it sold, we call it. It gets on your weighted pipeline, and it's a game of keepy uppy. Never let it go, or move it through. But even if it goes through to loss, it's better than pending forever. It's got to go through to win or loss.
And I read a really great book as well when I actually, so even though I felt that I sold on value and did an element of consultancy, it wasn't until I set up Cactus that I had to really learn to sell consultancy, right? And so and that's probably not true, because I probably did do it before, but just do it, as And I read a great book by Alan Weiss. I think Abby's listening in; she might be able to put a link into it. But it was How to Build $1 Million Consulting Practice, which both you and I have done very successfully over the last few years. And actually, what I learned in that book was actually quite. It's funny. I learned quite a few things also that helped me around understanding what value is, because sometimes value is intangible, it's periphery, it's kind of the impact, as you say, of the things that probably on your spin diagram, but it's those extra benefits that come from the consultancy. Someone might pay me to help them solve a particular problem, but there's often intrinsic additional value that comes from that, but it's very important that you're able to demonstrate that and show clients that. And so that was a really good book that definitely helped me get my head around it. But once again, I come back to it. People in agencies have to invest in the people in their business to be better at selling. And I think I have another guest on this show a while back called Jenny Plant, who you probably know. She does a lot of client service support. There's a lot of training for people working in client services, and where people have invested in her, they've seen a massive uplift in the client. The client spent like a massive uplift, and it's worked every time. So I think agencies need to start calling you now, and I'm going to give you a plug there and say to you, I mean, I know that you've got some incredible courses. So everyone listening,
I think that thing as well. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about changing in this new world, and so I think the key isn't it, that's really, really important. We all knew that a year ago. Everyone was talking about pivoting, was laughing at that word, but even though so we've taken our courses and made them all into bite sizes, and even we're going to do a series of podcasts. We're thinking about doing sort of smaller, quicker ones, because I just think having my son at home self-isolating and showing me the world of watching YouTube clips of 15 minutes and his knowledge be frightening, I thought, I do get it. So we're sort of adapting to offer small bits or big bits or whatever anyone needs, but we learn. The beauty is we learn ourselves.
So you said recently that obviously I made the point that in the last couple of months, we are middle of 2021 now, maybe just past the middle, and what's happened post pandemic is there's been a lot of shift in movement of jobs in agencies. People waited for the pandemic to be over before they moved. There's also been, I feel like we're in a very big sweet spot. Many agencies right now are doing really, really well. But one of the things that I've learned in business through all of the cycles of the peaks and the troughs is if you don't keep the sales momentum going, when the good times dry up, you've got nothing in reserve, right? So I always people say now, like, even though and I know you're the same, even though we're both incredibly busy in what we do, we still spend all of our time doing new business in the background every single month, because you just never know, right?
Yeah, you have to. And I think what we're seeing is, I mean, it'd be interesting also, because you'll have that knowledge, Spencer, about number one issue at the moment is for agencies is resourcing, which seems absolutely crackers, been through the pandemic. But as we say, people are moving on. But we've got to have new business. We've got to have marketing. It needs different skill sets. And I sort of say that there are 5 ways of doing it. You can free up the CEO to have more time to do it, or the management team by hiring more client-facing team members. You can train a client-facing individual who 50% of their time is spent on client work, and that pays a salary, and the other 50 comes over to marketing. One agency I work with, a PR agency, we put in place new businesses, everyone's business, across 40 people. They had one person who managed the database, but they didn't even have any new biz or marketing person. You can find, and maybe we should be a bit more creative, find talent from outside industry, or from a management consultant who's got the sort of consultancy, has got the consultative selling tool. We could hire a marketing grad We can share the load with those who are good at writing, can do the blogs, those who are good at speaking, do the speaking network. So basically, if you don't do one of those routes, you're not going to grow. So there are options, you know, but you do need to consider how you're going to cover it, because it does need different skill sets. I think the Rainmaker outreach person is definitely different from the thought leadership person, for example.
I know a lot of people, I think where people get, I mean, I'm going to be, it's funny because I did a bit of mentoring recently. It's the first time I've ever done it actually for like a non-owner of a business. And it was for someone who was doing business development in an agency. And they approached me and I said, look, I'm happy. It was paid mentoring. So, you know, I was happy to do it. And especially when I'm getting paid for doing anything. And it's been fascinating for me because my normal mantra is, Camilla, is, you know, whenever you recruit someone new into the business to do business development, whether they come from inside the space or outside, for me, I've got to try and get that person to have a 4 or 5 year journey with the agency, because it takes, you know, I share this story a lot, and Vim won't mind me sharing it, I'm sure. But Vim, when he worked for me he was £1 million a year new business person. Okay. But when he left us and went to another agency, he did no new business in the first 12 months in the new agency. What changed? He didn't change, but he had to rebuild trust with a new company behind him. He had to rebuild trust in the fact that he was selling a slightly different service, not very different, to be fair. And he had to get to know the team, and he had to get, you know, and so sometimes in new business, it just takes time to bed down, doesn't it? I mean, I remember in all of my successful sales jobs, I spent 6 months a year shadowing the bosses before they'd let me out. And then anyway, so I started mentoring this person, and she's brought £1 million of new business in to a company she just started within 12 months. Oh no, get it right. Was it within 12? Yeah, within 12, the first 12 months. Now I've like told her all the tricks, everything I've learned. And I know that you would probably have given her even more. But the reality is that for me is a real exception. You know, like I would say 9 out of 10 business development people that come into agencies for me, it takes them 2 or 3 years to start seeing real results. Do you think that's true or not?
I think.
What's your observation?
I think it depends on how new business fit you are. So yeah. I think there's a process. It's something we're developing where you have to go through. The big question, it's a massive one, is is your business actually fit for purpose for what people are buying right now? So it's a bit of a biggie one, because really new business starts with that, and it starts with doing brilliant work, right? So secondly, then and this is quite difficult, you know, are your products right? Are they articulated well? You know, is it articulated through all the different mechanisms by which we can share our sales? You know, from infographic to RFPs, through to proposals, through to pitches, through to website. Then we need to get everyone on board so that everyone's an ambassador and they all know how to grow business. And then there's the whole process of, you know, getting the meeting in. So we've got 12 prospecting strategies that you can deploy to fill a pipeline. There are tons of marketing strategies you can use. So you need all of that flowing. Sales and marketing need to work together. And so then you need to go, was my first meeting good? Then the creds, then the pitch, then the win. Once you've won it, you've got to grow it. So it's a bit like a watch, which is so, you know, watches are so intricate the way they work together. It's all the component. I've got this thing about component parts at the moment, because all the component parts need to be working together. It's like one of those Newton's cradles.
Yeah, it's very true. I like that.
Cradle, which my parents had one of those, a bit of a 70s sort of desktop toy, but it's the momentum of conservation and energy. So you need all of these things. And why I love the weighted pipeline is, you know, what sort of lever to pull when, at which point. So there's an awful lot to be done. So my answer really is, if I go into an agency now, if they say, come and bring me briefs immediately, we would, you know, there's a real learning for us, because one of our team went into an agency and we got into this 3 meetings a month sort of scenario. And in the first month, this guy as well had got 3 meetings. I suddenly went, if you were a new biz director and you turned up on a Monday, and by Friday you'd broken into 3 new great clients, you'd be seen as a total whiz kid, because you'd normally have these weeks like reading the case studies. So if you're fit for purpose, you can go. And also, if I go into an agency and you've got the database, it's all segmented, and everyone's they're keeping in touch with lapsed clients, lost clients, moved clients.
Yes.
Then you've got. I know when I used to go and be a consultant, is people go, oh my God, Camilla's joined. We've got this amazing pipeline. And I hadn't created. I mean, I just went in and just pulled it all together just to start to go. You do realise you've actually got. If every single person can bring in one thing each, there's actually all this potential here. So I think it depends how, there's one company I saw recently, I see lots of agencies, so I won't name any names, but I just sort of said, if you don't have any marketing, you don't have any content, you don't have a marketing manager, you don't have a database, we can't just go like some of the lead gen agencies out there on our own and pull rabbits out of hats. Because it's leading on to something that we want to talk about is cold calling and where are we with the process?
But before we do that, a couple of things. And Antonio just has written another comment, which actually does kind of ring a chord with me, which is, and by the way, I would say go and look at most new business people's LinkedIn profiles and tell me if they don't change jobs every 14 months on average.
Yeah.
And I know that because they're going to get fired. They leave or they get fired because they haven't brought any business in that time. And in many cases, by the way, because it happened to me, I got made redundant twice, Camilla, from jobs. I think I'm a pretty good sales guy, right?
Yeah.
I've got my last paycheck to prove it with commission, unlike a lot of people. And I've got to tell you, I got made redundant from 2 jobs for not hitting my numbers within 6 months and 12 months. And actually, when I left both those jobs, after I got made redundant, all the deals came in, right? So I would have smashed every number, but they were too impatient. So I think I just want to say I do think that there's an element of look, as long as someone's really nice, they're working really hard on new business, and I think the point about I love your explanation of trying to get everything lined up, but what I don't like, Camilla, is when people they go into agency sometimes and they go, you've got to have case studies before I'm going to do any selling. There's almost like I'm going to do all the ducks, and that's what Antonio's point is. You get all the ducks lined up, but they're never perfect. You've never got the right marketing materials. The website's never saying what you want it to say. And it's like an excuse.
It's better to do 80% today than 100% tomorrow. And that's why JFDI is called JFDI. So I totally agree with that. But on the other hand, an agency can't, if they don't have, you're not going to be able to.
It's almost like you've got to, it's a simultaneous strategy, isn't it? Isn't it like you said, marginal gain earlier? It's about just keep improving everything all the time. Yeah.
Keep improving it all, and you'll have a marketing strategy which is vital, and of course you're going to go and do outreach, but the point is you can't. The pandemic has really pushed on the fact that you cannot be calling someone with nothing of quality to say. Like if we're talking right now and someone's so that is a challenge. And also there's obviously a lot of content out there and a lot of email overload. On the other hand, you look to create, you just create something. I had someone who sent me someone I used to work with, an MD in an agency, and she sent me a file that I recognized wasn't for this Camilla, it must be for another. Well, I could have left that, but I thought, and that's just very opportunistic. So I just went back and said, let's catch up, and we are, and now there's a possible brief there. So it's just activating the opportunities that you see and keeping your eyes open and, watching the world around you. And that's the tactical outreach, along with if you can demonstrate a challenge that you have solved for a client that is similar to the clients you're trying to talk to, then that is really powerful.
Yeah, so I think you know, I only had one. We talk about cold calling. I only had one KPI when I was at Blue Halo when we were a Deloitte Tech Fast 50 business, and that was for me to have 50 conversations per month with people I'd never met before. Now, that didn't necessarily mean it was a cold call. Yeah. And actually, I've adapted that mantra a little bit to say meaningful conversations, because I believe, as you rightly said a minute ago, there's a lot of intrinsic value inside pitches you lost, people that you know, people that used to work with, like this. And so actually, you know, that so for me, you know, as long as your meaningful network involves some new conversations. Now, new conversations don't necessarily have to be cold. They could be. Like, I could pick up the phone and say, I want to sell to Saatchi and Saatchi tomorrow. So I ring up, you know, whoever, and I cold reach out to them. And then the likelihood is, right, if you play that game, it's always been a numbers game, right? And yes, there is a skill and an art to be able to do that. But historically in agencies, it's been a waste of time, because generally speaking, you know, there are much smarter ways to get business in, yeah, than you know, the ROI is easier with other bits of marketing compared with. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. You know, I know a guy who there's an agency. I won't name who it is. Actually, I'll try and keep things honest. But an agency who's a pretty big agency, and I said to him, I asked him how he won his biggest client, and it was a very well-known computer manufacturer spending £6 million a year with him. And he said he drank half a bottle of Malibu and basically cold called the guy in America, because he had to drink. I don't know why he drank Malibu. I mean, there's got to be better drinks, but to give him the Dutch courage to put a call in, and he put this call in, and, you know, and he won the business, you know, cut a long story short. So there are always these amazing stories, okay? But the reality is you don't hear about the 100 calls that didn't go through, and, you know, all the rest of it. But I think, yeah. So I was just going to say, sorry, we're getting to it. So what's your experience around agencies and activity? That's what around calling and that side of it. I mean, you say cold calling is dead. I think I agree with you to a higher degree that really that outbound approach is no good in its own single approach without it being part of a wider strategy.
I think our time is not finite. That's the point. And all of these activities would probably lead to something, but we have to think about what are the best ones that are going to get us there in our 5 days a week. Because I know us as a business, we know how to segment data, we know how to do marketing, we know how to win clients, we know how to win business, but we've got to be realistic that there are 5 days a week. And also there's a time and a place. So if I think the lovely Tina Feature might be watching, Phoebe, you know, this time a year ago, April, May, 85% of our pipeline froze because we're consultancy and training. So, you know, that was not being bought. And I went back to the drawing board, because before we were doing all these in-person events and all our work came directly into us. And I thought, right, a lot of it is about motivational and attitude. So I have these pebbles. I hope Fiji's watching. And I said to Tina, right, slightly bonkers. I have these beautiful little pebbles. And it's the same as your 100 meaningful conversations. I am going to get out there and I am going to talk to 100 people. And when I have, we will go out for lunch and see where we are. Well, I got to 23 and then I stopped because it all started flowing again. And I do also, it's sort of, I go over there and get all the marketing fixed. And I'm actually in a bit of a pebble moment at the moment. I think the time is right to go out again. But if I can share with you my upside down funnel, if I may.
Please do.
Can't resist my flip chart, because I think this will answer the question. So most agencies.
I just want to say I really miss having a flip chart. I need to get one.
It's really. Kind of I saw Kevin Duncan with it. I watched Kevin just does these little films and things. His was a bit neater than mine. This is a bit big, but his was like just perfect. It was right here, and I just went, that is so cool. So, because you can do Maro boards, but I think people want to get off some of the tech. So the whole point we're saying is, if we go off and do lots of activity up here, it will lead to something. And most agencies do it that way, and we call it spray and pray. That's it. But what I like to do is the other way around. So I go and see an agency and go, you know, what's your aim? And it's not just about money, because it might be about certain types of clients or demonstrating some great products that you're now good at. But say they want to bring in £1 million of net of new business. I will ask how much of it is, you know, can we get from organic, from existing client growth? And ideally, there's kind of a good ratio, is about 50%. So say over here, we've got 50% comes from existing clients. So make sure the existing clients know how to grow and they're tasked with it, etc. Then I go, right, we don't have to worry about that. And then we know from our barometer survey, annual survey that we do, which helps us benchmark.
Can we include a link to that on our show notes?
Yeah, of course. So we have talked about 100 agencies, and then everyone can benchmark themselves. And we're about to start our new one in October.
Amazing.
So we'll let you know about that. So industry average conversion rate is about 45%, but for the sake of my maths, I'm going to say 50%. So therefore, if our conversion rate is 50%, we need to be pitching for 2 million. If your conversion rate was 25%, it's don't put more and more up here, just stop and get that up to 50%. And then there'll be another case of maybe 35% going from creds to pitch or meeting to pitch. So we've suddenly got to put 6 million in here. But the better our conversion rate, the less we have to put in. And then we look at the average value, and the average value could be anything from 100K to, of course, people will say, I want $500,000. And some you can get really small and can grow. So then what I like to do, go, right, here are all the prospecting strategies and here are all the marketing strategies. And in an ideal world, we'd do all of them, but it's not an ideal world and we can't do all of them because there are too many. And there's a danger that sometimes, and I know we're guilty of going, oh, let's get on Instagram, going, well, will going on Instagram for JFDI as a business actually lead us to here. So when I started out, I was really a real numbers game sort of person. And my business partners brought me into the sort of world of value. And I think the combination of two could be really good.
Yeah.
When I started out, before I had data to analyze, I would literally go, well, the podcast will bring me in 3, and the webinars will bring me in 4, and the outreach mailers will bring in 5, etc.
Yeah.
And I go, that will lead to 100. But once you can start tracking it on a new biz audit, you can go, oh, actually, that led to loads, that didn't. And it just means that you can be just a bit more, you can know where to focus. So I think all of it is, there's so many ways to bring in opportunities, but we just need to see, like client referrals has got to be really strong, great one. And also,
I mean, I really like that approach. And I think for me, from a business development point of view, it's a very smart way to approach it. I love it. I do try, as you know, and it's interesting actually. You probably may find the same thing. Is a lot of people sometimes they'd ring me up and they're trying to grow their agency, and then they go, oh, I've got a sales problem. And then by the time I finish talking to them, I realize it's not a sales problem, it's a structure problem. They just don't have the structure to be able to support the sales team. Yeah. But I think for me, I put marketing managers into agencies. And so I try to get, I think the marketing managers in the agencies that we work with, they've got more KPIs than the whole business put together. I mean, because there's a lot of marketing, but if you get a great marketing person, highly organized, you can run the content on multiple channels. You can seed everything out. You can become a machine. And then in a way, it just helps all the touch points, reinforcing everything. So while the biz dev person's then looking at some of the things you're, being able to qualify more aggressively the leads, look at the marginal gains around win rates and conversion rates. And so I think it's a great approach. I love it.
Yeah. And it's really good to, I do it, I always think, I've got to do that again, because you get carried away and you start doing lots and lots of things, and it just grounds you to remind you, what do I actually need to do? Because it could be quite simple, actually. It's sort of simplified again. That's what I like.
It's like, and I used to say to people about the meeting 50 new people. Well, I used to cheat at my own KPI. So what I realized was, and even now, 20 working days in a month, I do 3 calls a day. That's 60 calls a month, and I only have 60 calls, which actually might sound like a lot, but some people have to wait a couple of months because my diary gets really, really busy. So what was my point here? I was just drifting off then. So the I don't know. I've just gone off on a tangent about making calls.
That meaningful conversation.
Yeah, so I cheated at my own game, which was, so when I was running the agency, I realized, because actually back then calls always took an hour. I don't know, or maybe even an hour and a half. Like now, I think we're a lot better at doing things in half an hour, Zoom chats, 45 minutes. But actually, what I did was I realized that when I went and spoke at an event, at the end of the event, 8 or 10 people would come up to me that I'd never met before. And then they would go, can we do a call? Can we do, or they would chat to me there and then, or I'd chat to me after the event in the bar or whatever. And I found that I didn't have to do, like all the calls. I could actually speak, and I would probably speak at 3 or 4 events. And I also learned, Camilla, that if there were 50 people in the audience, I would always get 3 leads and convert 1. So as long as I had 50 people who were relevant in the audience. And so I think I like when you just said then about the podcast, because I'm encouraging people to go on more and more podcasts, and it'd be really good to understand, what are those ratios a little bit more, so you can be smarter where you spend your time. Yeah. Like it's definitely smarter doing public speaking than it. Like look at Stephen Bartlett from Social Chain. I mean, I think he did like 58 speaking events in 1 year, and it grew an agency from 0 to 400 people in, what seemed like, no time at all. So
yeah, it is energy, it is agility. And I was going to ask you about mindset, because that must have been quite hard for some new business people in a lockdown, but it's so about having a positive, not like happy years where you just sort of think everything's a lead, but you've got to be a really upbeat kind of person for new business, haven't you?
Well, I think there's no question that there is no such thing as someone who is, we even me, I'm seen as a positive person. I have down days, I do, I mean, it is, you have to have a lot of resilience. What's that? You have to have a lot of grit to be successful, and somehow you've got, and don't you sell more when you're smiling? Isn't that true?
Yeah. And selling is energy, transferred energy, isn't it? Or transferred enthusiasm. Because you've got to believe in the product or what you're selling genuinely to be able to transfer it over. But also one thing, the huge thing that I live by is the law of reciprocity, which was in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Effective People. And we've really run JFDI like that. I mean, it does take quite a long time, but the more you give, the more it comes back. And it's a nice way to live as well. But, people if you give to someone 3 or 4 times, it's actually inherent in that person to realize they owe you something without it even being spelt out. So, that is a real art, and that's how you build up a fantastic network of people and make, so I will encourage people to come to me to ask for any type of training, even if we don't do it. So they might say, do you know someone who's brilliant at facilitation training? And I'll have a pool of people who I can, because, it's just always helpful to be that person.
Yeah. So there's a really, so there's something you said a minute ago, which was new business is everyone's business. Now, I've heard that quoted to me quite a lot over the last couple of years, and I was delighted to find out that you and Mark, or was it mainly Mark, Balkan yourself, coined that phrase.
Yeah.
You helped him seed it out, or you together you did it. So I say, but I love that phrase. New business is everyone's business. Have you got any tips for people listening? Because I remember, in my agency, I drew out the new business the marketing and new business process. I mapped it out. And then I realized that my team could have an impact on helping new business. But what tips have you got to getting the wider team to support? Because I look at LinkedIn posts from agency founders or people in the team, and I know they've got teams of maybe 50. Well, let's say they've got teams of 20, 30, 40, and they're getting 4 or 5 likes because the team aren't supporting their LinkedIn posts. Like, what? I don't know. Yeah. Like, what are the best ways to get the team involved with, new business?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, with that, they really should be like a LinkedIn group community within that agency where everything gets posted, so everyone knows to share it. But yeah, 100%, because I learned through sort of action, really, when I was employed by a global design agency to teach everyone how to join in and get really good at new business. And we inherited the project, unfortunately, kind of after the brief had been written. So it was like, what we want you to do is go and do that. But we didn't really have a part in help shape the brief. And what I learned was that anyone who's really good at it anyway, who's quite entrepreneurial, kind of just gets better and better. And those who think, I don't want to do new business, sort of sitting there a bit crossed-armed thinking, I don't really want to learn this. So the absolute key is, first of all, to head it up, the people running the agency, to share with the agency, this is where we are, all warts and all. It's been a tough time, but we've done really well. But we need our pipeline to be full, and we need everyone to contribute. And to say to them, what's in it for the agency, obviously, but the what's in it for you. And the what's in it for them is, as I said, is that they, if you get to the top of, if you want to get to the top of the company and get noticed, grow business. If you've got these skills, I say to people, you'll take them with you for the rest of your life. If you have a side hustle, as it's being called at the moment, or, wherever you go, whether you're negotiating with your family or trying to sell something, it's really, really valuable skills to have. And even saying things like, how strong are you on LinkedIn? And they kind of go, you say, look, that's gold dust. Don't think of a network as something that's not particularly bright. These contacts you will take with you forever, whether you're trying to find someone on a speaker's slot or you're helping a marketeer break into a new opportunity. So I think you have to head it up. Then you have to invest in the skills and training. So what we would do is we'd take them through a process of, this is how it all works. And then I would give them like lots of ideas of how to go out and bring business in. And some people might prefer just to ask 3 clients for great referrals. Some might want to write to what I call a passion client, like they might be not nuts on the opera and write to the Royal Opera House. So you give them all these techniques, and then they find the one that appeals to them most. And then you finish. So those are the sort of, so this is why we need to do it. Here are the skills. And then I think you do need incentives. You can have personal incentives and you can have group incentives. And I'm sure most companies have discretionary bonuses at the end of the year. But we started something really nice. If we hit our target every month, we all had a £50 voucher to go and spend in the shop of our choice. If we hit our target 3 months in a row, we'd all go out and have a summer party and do something. And, a lot of people do £100 spot bonus for bringing in a new lead, or 1% if the business converts. So I think, we have to give people skills and tools and strip away why is this scary? It's not scary. It's brilliant. It's, you're curious, and you're looking at the world outside, and you want to work on new clients, and this is how you do it. And then you say why it's really beneficial for you, as well as why the agency needs it.
Yeah, if I had an agency tomorrow, and I think I would, because when we did our lead generation survey last year, in the top 12 ways that the lead sources was actually team members was in the top 12 ways that 80% of all leads came in. So we know that team members are one of the main ways that business is brought into an agency. I think in your survey, you reference management network, I think. So you talk about the manager, right? Yeah. So I did it as like anyone on the team. That was what the data came back as. But similar thing. I would, as soon as someone referred a piece of business in, let's say someone brought in pick a deal, like a £20,000 deal. Whatever that percentage would be, whether it's 1% or 2% or 3%, I would go and get that cash out of the cash machine with a security guard or whatever it is, and I would give it to them in front of the whole team and say, "Here you go. This is for you, for referring in a lead that we converted." And I think if it didn't convert and it was a good lead, I'd still probably give them something as a gift or a present. Yeah. And then I would take the money back off them, put it back in the bank, and then pay it to them minus the tax. But visually, I would like everyone to see, because I think sometimes bringing it to life is important as well, right? Because if everyone can see that someone just done 3 or 4 grand for bringing in $100 grand deal, that's actually quite an incentive, right?
Yeah, someone said the same with the post pitch, which was if you were converting 25% and industry average is 50%, and you're leaving 25% on the table, and you had that as I don't know, not a Lamborghini, but 400 grand's worth of pounds, or a car, and you just push it over the cliff, you'd see it so differently, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Do you know, someone came to me, someone reached out last week and they said, I think they'd lost like £750,000 worth of deals this year so far. And was saying, if we'd had a better conversion rate, if we, I think, and I was thinking, well, if I come in, I'll send you in, we'll do a rev share deal. So if we improve your rate and you get 350,000, we get a bonus back for that. So, but it is, I think that on the point though, quite seriously, everybody, everyone, doesn't matter how good you are at the new business, in the end, everyone has a run. Sometimes it's when I had it last year, Camilla, where an agency I work with, they'd grown so much, they suddenly found themselves competing with even bigger agencies. And those even bigger agencies would throw £100,000 at a pitch. They would go, they would do whatever it takes to win the deal. And I don't think the agency had realized about, the importance of showing, how much you want the business and personalization and the things you mentioned earlier about the tiny noticeable things. And, so, yeah, that's been a really good talk. We've crammed a lot in.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? We have.
Out of time, sadly, but do you know what? I'd love to do another one of these, maybe with Mark. I should get Mark on and quiz him with any other questions that are left.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So thank you for your time today, Camilla. It's been a real pleasure having you here, listening to you. And I think for me the big takeaway really for today is just reminding everyone the importance of investing in sales training, not letting up now. Make hay while the sun shines, great, but at the same time, keep the momentum going in the background.
Consistency of purpose.
Amazing.
Your 3 calls, and I say that to client-facing teams. They go, well, I haven't got the time, and you think, well, if you just from 8:30 till 9 over a cup of tea. It's something proactive, and you do it every day rather than waiting for Wednesday afternoon and then something else on Wednesday afternoon. I think consistency of purpose is critical.
This last question, how do you manage that time? What's your top tips from your perspective?
I find it a bit easier because I love doing new business.
Yeah.
But exercise is probably, to me, what new business is to other people. So I can see the benefit, and I really, really want to be that really fit person. But because I'm so into business, I end up sitting here all day and not going out, for a walk or a run or whatever. So I think it's very, very similar. So if you're decide to run a marathon like Peter's, it's too, like saying I want to win £1 million. It's too big. So you just have, that's why I like working backwards and breaking it down. So I did go for a long walk with my son yesterday, and I will do it. But you have to break it down. So Monday I'll start by doing 20 minutes, Wednesday, and I love kind of goals, and I like 100-day plans, and ticking off lists and getting there. And everyone's different. So some people might prefer using an app or whatever, but it's very, very similar. I know I've spent this time drinking a glass of wine and reading a book on how to get fit. And then you spend ages getting the Fitbit, and then you faff around going, well, I'll eat avocado on toast at 3:15, and just get on and do it. That's why I'm fascinated by the brain, the 2 bits of brain. There's this one, which is the instant one, who wants instant gratification. So you drink the wine, you don't go for the walk, you don't do new business. But this is the one, in 3 months' time, you'll see amazing results. And we as humans work much harder to develop this back part and delay gratification. So I think it's very similar, but I don't find it difficult because I love going out and getting new ops. So For me, it's easier. But I do think it's consistency, and also everyone's different. So when I work with people, are they a visual? You know, do they think in numbers? Do they think in how do they think? So what's going to work best for them, really?
I mean, I said to someone the other day. I said so earlier on. I said if I had a business again tomorrow, I think doing exercise first thing in the morning for me, if I don't do it in the morning, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Also, I'm in a better mood when I've done some exercise, and so I would, and I do now really anyway. But if I had an agency tomorrow, I would book my diary out at 9 or 9:15 till 10 and 10 to 10:30 or 9 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10. But I'd have 2 calls blocked out, and I'd block that time out a year in advance. Yeah. So that time every single day is the time when I do my proactive calls. I think, like, for me now, I feel like then it's done, and then I can react to the business. Because the problem is, what it's like, you turn your phone on in the morning and everything comes at you, which is helping you not do the stuff that you don't want to do.
You spend all day
do business.
You can spend all day. I know I was ill, not really, really ill, but sort of a bit ill. So I got into bed, and then I thought, I'll just check my emails. And it was fascinating because I spent 3 days just responding to emails. And I thought that is so interesting, because you could spend all your life just answering, playing to everyone else's tune, rather than going, right, go away. This block of time is where...
It's like you're on everyone else's agenda if you do that, not yours.
Exactly. And you need the results. So you do need to be attributable. So I think written down on paper where you're going is vital. That's why the weighted pipeline is so valuable.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful show. I've taken up lots of your time. I genuinely think we could have had a 3-hour show today. I really appreciate it. We'll put Camilla's details in the show notes. Thank you for everyone who's listened today. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again soon for some more exciting episodes.
Lovely. Congratulations on number 51.
Oh, thank you very much. And that's a wrap.